Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong. And joining me, even though you can't see her in the studio, she's back. It's Jamie and Dr. Emmett Bean. Welcome, guys. Okay. So, you can't hear because it's on the headphones. But everyone is so happy that you're here. We wanted to do another catch-up episode here with the two of us. Take a break from our normal guests because we have some stuff that we wanted to catch you guys up on. A new project that we're really excited about. We wanted to kind of share with you the story behind that, and we thought it might be cool to talk about. I will say that Jamie's got like a bad case of allergies. I think it's because all of the gale force winds going on. So don't mind her blowing her nose and sniffling throughout.
Is my sniffling going to catch on the mic?
Oh, yes. But that's okay because that's you. It's funny because we just went to this award show this past weekend. And Jamie was quite comfortable after what we were told from the bartender is broken elbow pours of wine. And we're like, what is a broken elbow pour? And it's like, oh, and your elbow's still broken and you cannot stop pouring the bottle of wine. So she has had quite a weekend of showing her personality. So, yeah.
I thought you were going to say that I blew my nose at somebody.
No.
Okay.
Not you. The allergies didn't start till the next day.
Oh.
But the day before was a lot of slurring and yelling and shrieking. But it was a lot of fun. And big thanks to the Alzheimer's Association, or Alzheimer's Foundation.
Arthritis Foundation.
Oh, no.
Wrong A.
So big shout out and thank you to the Arthritis Foundation for inviting us and letting us be a part of your event. And so what we are doing is, if you follow us on social medias, you'll see that we've been talking a little bit about this new TV show that we have been cooking up and that we've been putting together. And we thought we'd share a little bit of the background behind it, like why we came up with it, like where this all came about. So, full disclosure, it's been a long time since we've done anything together, and I'm really nervous.
It looks like we're wearing the same shirt.
It does, but we're not. I have a little Darth Vader in my pocket, see? And Jamie's got
I put my shirt on first.
Yes, but I didn't see it. So
this is what I was wearing when I went to drop the kids off.
Oh, well, I didn't notice it. I think it's subliminal because every time Jamie has a certain color on, I will wear the same color.
He tries to match me.
Or I will not notice and I will just naturally match. So it's a thing. It works though because our colorful background, we pop in front of the colorful background.
It just looks weird that we're matching.
Yeah. So why did you want to do this catch-up episode?
Because we ran out of batched episodes.
That's true. That's very true. Full transparency. We're always honest.
And we've been on a roll.
Yeah.
You had so many episodes in a row.
Hey, and I take that back. We have one batched episode.
Yeah.
But we're pushing that back to next week because we wanted to put this one out. But we were on a roll. We were doing good. And then I got super busy and I couldn't record any. And that's part of what we're talking about.
Well, and I didn't publish them for a long time.
Yeah.
So we had a bunch from super long time ago. And then now we ran out.
Yeah, I think one of them was like promoting an event in May. And it came out in like October or something.
For real?
Yeah. But I had said, like, if this comes out in time.
Sorry.
Yeah. But if you're listening to us now, it means you're still listening to the podcast. So thank you. You didn't hold it against us. But yeah, we've been real busy. partly because we have a lot of, of our regular work going on and kids and stuff. But we've also been working really hard on building and creating this TV show. And I don't want to even call it a TV show because it's a show that's going to be on multiple platforms. TV, there's going to be a podcast version, YouTube version, um, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And TikTok. So this show is kind of going to be transcending. I don't even know if that's the right term. It'll be all across different platforms. So it's a show. It's just a straight up show. Um, and and it came about from kind of a challenge that Jamie came up with, where we did the lantern floating this past summer, which for those who don't know, it's this giant production where it's broadcast all across the globe online and also here on broadcast TV. And like I forget how many, like 50,000 people on the beach, and we were fortunate to write and produce the show and the broadcast part of it. And we got to see just how meaningful it was for us to kind of get to use our video production and creative skills, I guess, or I guess our calling in video production, to be able to share stories that connect people and provide something of positivity or healing or understanding. And it was like such a awesome experience, that we're like, we gotta keep doing this, and initially we thought we would do it again next year, but for personal reasons we won't be. But that didn't stop us from wanting to continue to do something like this. And and then we're like, well, even if we did do this again, that's like one time a year. Like we want to do this more frequent than that, and more than just about healing and grieving. Like there's other things too that we feel that we could create connections through. So that's when Jamie said, well, okay, so how do we do that? And we thought of it, and we thought, well, there was this TV show idea that we had back when we first started, which was what
I
year was
think
it?
it was 2014.
Yeah. And that time I told you about it and you loved it, but then what were the reasons why we didn't decide to go through with it at that time?
We were still part-time. We weren't full-time yet. We didn't really know how to run a business. And we didn't
Yeah.
have clients. I don't even know if we had decided at that point to go full-time. Because
I think we came up with this idea as possibly what
before,
could make
yeah,
it worth for us to go full time. Like maybe we'll do
yeah.
this thing.
But then that idea, like trying to get sponsors for a show in order to support us being full time in the business, felt really terrifying.
And we're like, do we even know how to make a TV show? Like in theory we do, but I mean that's a whole nother beast, because at that time we were just doing like long format videos that are like 5 to 10 minutes long. And then to think, oh, we're gonna, write and produce a half-hour TV show every week. That's a lot. And we're like, the idea of it sounds great, but who are we? Like,
Yeah.
it required us knowing a lot of people and gathering stories and having them share it on camera. And we're, at the time, as Jamie mentioned, like we didn't even have clients, so we didn't have a whole lot of a network of people. I didn't start the podcast. Like the podcast probably was like the baby step to where we're at now, where I had to find guests and build that confidence that, to reach out to people, and even build my interview skills, right? Because
Yeah.
when we first started the podcast, like she gave me a lot of notes about how it's,
Not just the podcast, interviewing for our videos.
yeah.
That was what you're really bad at. So I used to be a really good interviewer because I used to do it all the time for what I was doing at Oceanic. Like
For your testimonial commercials.
Yeah, for testimonials and stuff. And I would always be able to get people to cry.
Now you
so
guys are seeing the
mean.
real side of
I'm so
Jamie,
mean.
the cackling and laughter at others' expenses.
But I felt really, I felt like I was good at it because the stuff that I would get from the interviews was really good. But I couldn't do the interview and shoot also. So I was trying to get like my friend Trisha to do the interviews, and she was okay, but she's really short.
That has nothing to do with getting
Well, she,
people to
okay,
talk
yeah.
on an interview.
She's good at talking, but then they would all be looking down.
You just get her a taller chair.
I did. I
Oh
got her
my
a
gosh.
stool. And then she's a lawyer, so she wasn't really available to do my shoots for me. This is a weird tangent.
Yeah.
So when you started doing interviews, I had a lot of notes because you were not good at listening to people
Yeah.
and paying attention.
I wasn't even good at listening to her. And that was a big issue for us as friends and as a couple because I was
Well, by
looking
the time
forward.
we became a couple, you were better at it.
Oh, okay.
It was difficult as friends.
Yeah, because I mean, my mind's going all over the place, and I want to share so many things, and I don't even pay attention to noticing, like, well, what do you think about that? I'm like, on to the next, on to the next. I just want to keep talking. And also being on the other side of the camera, where I'm the one who's the subject of the focus, it was, and or an MC too, as an
Yeah.
MC, is like hard to switch and be like, well, how do I put you, the guest, on as a platform? So I used to think interviews were like what I saw on TV, which is a reporter had a little sheet of paper on a clipboard, and they would just go down the line and ask questions. What is your name? What do you do? Why? When did you start? All these just bing, 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 and that's what I would do. And she would point out, like, you're not even paying attention to their answers, and you're not even looking at them. You don't even hear what they're saying because they're telling you something really interesting that you could easily have them follow up on and expand on, but you just move on to the next question. It's like, do you even know what they're saying? I'm like, no, I'm just concentrating on when the break is, when they stop talking, so that I can ask the next question. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like it. So yeah, you really, at first I was like, why does it make a difference? Like, I was very resistant to a lot of the notes you gave me, but I don't even know how it transitioned to where I started to take those notes, but thankfully
Well,
I
because
did.
I'm really mean and I'm not going to let up if you don't
Yeah.
listen to me.
That's the truth.
But you're
So
really good at it now.
thank you.
You're way better than me.
Have you even interviewed anyone
Uh-uh.
for how long?
I don't want
When was
to.
the last time you did an interview?
I think it's also hard now because my hearing is worse.
Oh,
So I'm not able to talk to people really. So yeah.
that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's worked out to be a really good formula for us, because what we've seen now after doing all this work is that I've, as Jamie said, have really gotten a lot of experience and honed my craft at conducting the interviews and capturing the stories. And then Jamie's been able to then really just focus on her gift as the editor to take all of this stuff that we talk about and then be able to like mold and piece together these videos where the story that's being shared and distributed is engaging, meaningful. There's a storyline, a through line, because when we talk in this interview, like, I'm just trying to, it's almost like I'm throwing a fishing line out and I'm just keep fishing, and sometimes you'll grab things that you don't want to, and you just throw it back in the ocean, and then other times you're like, oh, this is really good stuff. So it's kind of like she's able to weed through all of the conversations and the topics and things that we discuss and find that storyline, that through line, and piece it together where it's still authentic to them. She's not remaking anything that they're saying and not changing what they're saying, but like, weeding out some of the trash fish that we don't want to eat, right? Um, so it worked out great that we didn't go through what 10 years ago with this TV show idea, because we wouldn't have had this synergy, this experience, and also the confidence too,
Yeah.
because what really made it for us was after doing Lantern, that was kind of the last, I think, building block to where we knew we could do this, because we felt really confident in the videos that we made up until that point, but they were all for, nonprofits, small businesses, like a specific audience, not necessarily a wide, global audience, if anything. And then to see um, the results of what we did for Lantern this past summer, it was like, oh, we can do this. Like we did, we did put together something that was meaningful and relevant and engaging to a large audience. So put that all together, and then Jamie asking afterwards, well, what do we do then with this experience and with this kind of almost this like burning desire to do something like that, where make something that can connect people and make a difference in the community. And then that's when we brought back up this idea of this TV show, which was initially, and it still is, where it's gathering people's stories, but in a kind of like a variety show type of style, like where there's multiple people and multiple stories throughout the episodes, that through learning about people's lived experiences and such, that we can, one, it's super interesting, but two, we can learn about each other, learn about ourselves, learn about this place we call home here in Hawaii. Um, and it was kind of inspired by what we used to see back in the days, like what 80s and 90s. The Hawaiian Moving Company, they did a show like that, and it'd been off the air for several, maybe a decade or so, a couple decades, and we just remember enjoying watching that. Like we were young, we were kids, but even then we still enjoyed watching this show where people are being interviewed and sharing about their lives or what they do. And so we knew this is something that's a family type of show that would work. And what did you think about this that you wanted to do as well? Like, was there something about this that made sense to you to want to move forward with creating this show that we came up with?
I think like what you left out, what the reason why I asked you what you wanted is cuz I already feel I wouldn't say uh I already feel very fulfilled by what we do. Like I
Currently, yeah.
feel like I am in my purpose and doing what I was put here to do by doing the work that we do with nonprofits. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've wanted to do forever, and we do it, and I feel pretty much totally fulfilled by that. And I feel like that is good for you, but it's not total fulfillment for you. And there's other stuff that there's something missing in what we currently do where you're not totally fulfilled. So that was why I asked you what you wanted. So this is kind of following your and going with you on this journey.
Mm. Well, before we go continue on with that, what is it that specifically about doing this kind of work with nonprofits that's so fulfilling for you, and why was it kind of your desire from, like you said, ever since you started out your career, that you wanted to do this kind of work?
I didn't talk about this before.
Probably not, but I think this is appropriate. I think it's interesting. Not everybody, I don't know if anybody out there, like from producers or videographers that I ever met, was like, I want to go out and do videos for nonprofits. Like it's
Oh,
it's not common.
normal.
Yeah. Because the normal preconception is that nonprofits, there's no money in that, so you can't afford to make a living doing what you wanted to do.
I think most, well, I can't say most. I think my idea of what normal people in my field is that they're more artists.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I'm an artist. I feel like I'm a technician.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the difference. Like, I didn't get into TV because I was inspired by cinematography or movies or anything. I was just interested in it. I was kind of interested in it, like politically,
Oh,
like
really?
media. Like, I was interested in, I took a film and political science class at UH.
Huh.
That was my first media related class, and I found it super interesting. And then I was like taking classes when I went to Boston. I did a paper on like portrayal of gay people in film, like historically.
Mm-hmm.
So that was more my interest in it was from the political side.
Mm.
So not artsy at all. And then I was watching Oprah during Thanksgiving break at my friend's apartment in New York. And she was saying that video can change the world.
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah.
this part of the story.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was just randomly watching Oprah. And I wrote that down. I had a little journal composition book and I wrote it down in there. And that was how I thought, because I don't want to make beautiful things. I want to make things that change the world.
That's what I love about you. I don't know why you laugh, because I think it's so one unique, but also so such a necessity in the world, and it's like it's something that I think makes you who you are, which is so valuable for
I think it's
us.
funny because I'm like 20 years old watching Oprah. I'm like, I want to change the world with my school projects.
And so with that, is that how you kind of gravitate towards this, in a desire to want to work with nonprofits because you could see the
So the
connection?
nonprofit side was because of Nakekio Kaaina, Gigi's farm, the Makaha farm. That was my project that I made uh, for one of my video classes. Um, we just had to do some kind of documentary ish project.
Mm-hmm.
So it was over Christmas break, I think. Must have been because I was here. So I interviewed Gigi Kokyo at the farm by Makaha Elementary because my mom had worked closely with him and she was good friends with him. And I don't know many people, so I just like, I know Gigi, I'll go over there. So I interviewed him and I did a video on the farm. And then I must have showed it to him probably when we came back because there was no digital stuff online yet.
That's right.
I think I gave him a VHS copy.
Wow.
And then he asked if he could use it to show people he was trying to get a grant. And
Mm.
then they used the video to get the grant. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
And to this day, that's kind of what you're still
Yeah.
doing now, right?
So that's how the nonprofit thing happened.
Mm-hmm. And when you and I started our business and we started to get that kind of work, and um, I initially when we first started our business, I was just like, let's get whatever business we can, like just take in what we can. Um, but it was through those experiences of working with the nonprofits, and as I started to get better with the interviews and really learning and caring about um, the stories that we were gathering, that's when I started to also share that desire of, yeah, I only want to work with nonprofits too because this is meaningful. Like this is actually doing something. So it was not my initial desire like Jamie's, but through the experience, that's where I kind of got hooked to it, and kind of opened up my eyes. And um, but at the same time, like as Jamie said, it wasn't the only thing I wanted. But the problem is, I, I I know I want a lot of things, but the problem is I don't know what they are. I just know it's like, okay, this is awesome. Now what? Like, what else can I add to this? And we've been going through this challenge of her asking me for how many years now?
This is where the game show happened,
Mm-hmm.
and so many things.
The podcast.
Yeah.
This podcast started because of that. A TikTok channel, and we
Yeah.
had a was it the Easy Peasy Video School,
Yeah.
and all these things were just initially, most of them were me trying to think of business ideas. Like, oh, what can make money possibly, but would be something that I enjoy. This, though, when Jamie asked, what is it that we do next, was the first time that I didn't think about. I mean, the money scared me because we needed it, but I asked myself, what would give this same fulfillment that we got from doing Lantern, where it was on such a large scale that we were able to reach people, and help. And so that's why this idea of the TV show came back, because it kind of just put all of our past experiences together into one, of this whole journey of, her wanting to do things that made a difference, in the world, me starting to feel that way too, and as through learning it, and me really getting to fall in love with the interview process, and gathering stories and seeing us work together. So, man, back when we, like, the first several years of us doing videos, like, the edit process was really brutal. Like, we'd have a lot of,
Yeah.
you know back and forth and arguments, and like, we weren't on the same page for many of the projects. And nowadays, it's almost like it's
Oh, knock
rare.
on wood. Don't say it out loud.
But nowadays, things are
Okay.
like, we feel really confident in us as a team together. And so when I thought about the experience of Lantern, what I loved was, because she's like, well, what was, as far as what you did, not the result, which is people felt good and helped, but what did you do that you really enjoyed, that you would want to do more of? And I was the things that I was describing, like, doing the shoots, meeting different people, gathering all these different stories, and directing and things like that. That's what I really felt, really drove me. Like, I felt passionate about that. And what I wanted was that freedom to say, like, this is what I want to do. This is the type of story. These are the type of people. And so that's when it was like, remember that old TV show idea we had? That fits all of these little boxes. And so we started, like, and Jamie is so good, because I'm always the type that's like, okay, got this great idea, and I just put it on the back of the table, and I get distracted and do other things, and nothing happens. But she was the one who was like, okay, we got to make a whole game plan and schedule, like, and every week we meet and build this and such. And we've been working super hard, Jamie especially, because um, every time I came up with an idea of, like, okay, this is what we add, and this is what I need in order to, push this out to and pitch it to other potential sponsors and such, I would keep moving the goalpost and say, like, actually, you know what else would be good? You know what you should also do? So it went from, oh, we can do this in a week, to, like, weeks of building, like, a 14-page presentation book,
16.
16-page presentation book, and filming and producing a pilot episode, and all this kind of stuff. But it happened, and it probably took us, what, 2 months, 2.5 months to do this, which is insane, I think. Where we've built out the whole show, the plans for it,
I think we started in August.
so August, September, October, yeah, 3 months. Um, and fine tuned it. Got connected with some amazing collaborators and people that are helping guide us through it as well. Uh, all of these things that I told her, like, I want to have this, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're crazy!" Like one of them was, I want a theme song for this TV show, and I want Chardonnay to sing it. And she's like, "Wow, you really are just like in the clouds on this one." And heck, Chardonnay recorded it and did it, and it's on board. And her and Brittany Paiva um, came and met with us, and we talked for a couple hours, and then like in a day
I
they wrote
know.
and produced the whole song, and it's
They're like
the best thing
geniuses.
ever. I remember telling, they
Yeah.
said, "Well, what do you want in the song?" And I said, "All I want is that it says Here in Hawaii," which is the name of the show. Anything else you put in there, like, that's, I leave it up to you, because I have no idea what else would go in this. And they put together this whole song with like the most perfect lyrics. And the people that we've shown either the pilot episode to or just let them listen to the song, like, they are, that's what gets everyone super excited. Like, oh my gosh, this is a really good show, and it's all just based on this
The
theme song that
song.
they made. And getting other people to be advisors for us. I was like, I want Robert Casimiro to help us out with this, and she's like, oh, okay, whatever. And been meeting with him, and he's been helping out and very supportive of it and such. So this TV show that we have come up with is called Here in Hawaii, and the the heart behind it is, the intention behind it is that through local people's stories, we are able to help share the different values of aloha, so that we can bring in connection through different communities and different generations. Um, because no matter what age or what community or what background the people that we interview come from, there are unique and maybe different experiences. And then there's also experiences that there's like a lot of similarity and connection with. But so much learning and growth can come from that. And when we say the values of aloha, that kind of came from this meeting I had with another person who is really, really generous with her time. And I didn't have an idea of what the show's, like, why, the why behind the show. I just knew I wanted to have
We were trying to figure
interviews.
out a mission.
Yeah.
We knew we wanted a mission, but we just couldn't put our finger on what it was.
Yeah. So I met with my Kosasa, who, like, I was so shocked that she would give me the time of day to say, I have this show idea. I just want to bounce it off of, people as I, see what they think. And she was the one who challenged me with, like, well, what's the why? Like, why is this show necessary? Why should people watch it? And she kept challenging me in that. And I kept doing the technical stuff, like, oh, because, stories are interesting and people are, going to share it and stuff. And through her constant challenging of it, uh, the words that eventually came out of my mouth is, because we need to share. At the time I said, share the spirit of aloha, which is what's so special and unique to here in Hawaii. And she's like, now that is something that is a mission. Like, work with that. Like, have that be something that you kind of use as your guiding light. And so I brought it to Jamie, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Right?
But also very uncomfortable.
Very true. And why was it uncomfortable?
Because we're not Hawaiian.
Mm-hmm. So even though we're born and raised here, like, we feel, I felt very much like, uh, who am I to say anything about,
Yeah.
like, um,
And then there's people who are not Hawaiian, but they're very tied to Hawaiian culture.
yeah,
That's not me or you.
right. But what was really kind of what drew me to it was that in a lot of the people that we've been interviewing in the organizations that we're working with, they have really introduced us so much to Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian values, Hawaiian history, what what's happening now in our current society.
I think it's really the aloha values thing for me. Like that was what when we started working with Kaneohe Elementary,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Derek and the kids were talking about that. That was really like uh it's really interesting for me because it's so relevant, and like I wish I could be like that. But that I think that really connected with me.
And that was where, when we were shooting a video and interviewing the kids, they were talking about these aloha values that they live by and are kind of every day, being taught.
Well,
Uh,
it's a big part of their curriculum at
mhm,
Kaneohe Elementary, and then we've been doing videos on their summer program for 3 years now.
mhm,
And starting from the first year, like Derek Minakami, the principal, was talking about how they try to instill those values within the curriculum and the activities that the kids do. And I had never heard of the aloha values before,
mhm.
so
Me
I didn't
neither.
know what he was talking about.
I thought they just kind of made it up
Like the yeah.
in the classroom, because what it was, aloha spells out with ALOHA,
Yeah.
but each letter represented a different value. So when they were bringing it up, it's like A is for akahai, L is for lokai. Like each one had a different thing. But then they would also go into, well, what does olu olu mean? And how do you live that? So it's really neat to not only hear the definition, but how you can,
Yeah.
different ways that it can show up in your life, and
And
how you
having
get.
like a fourth grader tell us.
Yeah. And so for some of our listeners who are unfamiliar with Hawaii, or and don't live here or not from here, um, I'll just introduce it as it was told to us. Who is it originally started from Auntie Pilahi Paki, who then passed it on to Pono Shim, and he passed it on to so many of his students and colleagues and friends, and that's how it eventually made its way to us, because then it went into the school. So the first value is akahai, which is translated into grace, but more specifically, it's kindness to be expressed with tenderness. Then lokahi is unbroken, which, if you dive deeper into what that means, it's unity to be expressed with harmony. And as it was described to us from our friend Ashley Ono, it's not that we're bringing people together, but it's that you take yourself from a different perspective, a higher perspective, to where you can see that actually we are all together. It was never that we needed to pull each other together. It's just that you take a different perspective, a higher perspective, um, to reveal the things that unite us. And then olu olu is gentle, which is agreeable to be expressed with pleasantness. And ha'aha'a is empty, to empty yourself out, to show humility, which can be expressed with modesty. And then ahonui, which is waiting for the moment. That's patience, being expressed with perseverance. So all of these different things, and the more we keep talking to Pono's students, the more we learn about these things. Ashley sat with us for like a couple hours and really dove deep into it. She has this wonderful talk that she has on YouTube, actually. So we should put the link to that on, where she shares a little bit about that too. And so when we saw that, when Jamie brought it back up, the values of aloha and how it tied to this show, it's like, there it is. Through all of our stories, we're seeing how we live, how we experience, how we feel these different values of aloha. And so rather than this be a show where we're like teaching people, like, here's an example of what you do. It's like, no, let's just all learn from each other through our lived experience. And this kind of this idea of lokahi being that we're all connected, we're all one. It's like, yeah, let's everyone share our own stories, because you'll start to see that there's connections,
I
instead
think
of
that
seeing
was part
divides.
of because that Lokahi was the theme that we used for Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going through that process of having that as the current under everything that we were putting into the program
Mm-hmm.
kind of helped us land here, I
Yeah.
think, because that was really, I really liked that. I liked focusing on that idea.
Yeah, and it's not something where, because there's so much division and misunderstanding in the world and in our communities, and rather than being like, hey guys, let's educate you and how you can you know understand each other better, or learn to live with each other better, it's like, no, let's actually just take back this perspective of like, let's just listen to each other, and hear each other, and then we can really see, hey, that's actually room for realizing that we're not so different or so far apart. So initially, I think I wanted to have this show just based on the value of lokahi, but then, as Jamie explained to me more about, no, there's so much more to the values of aloha, not just lokahi. And as we dove deeper into each value, it was like, oh yeah, this makes sense that this show that we're doing can touch on all of these different values. And so what we came up with is a show that, it's kind of, well, we call it a magazine style. So just like a magazine where you have like a cover story and there's like,
That's not what we call it.
oh,
That's the name of the style of show.
okay,
Like that's a thing. Like
yeah,
how there's true crime things.
okay. Well, I've
I
never heard of
didn't
it.
make it up.
Okay.
I learned about it in school.
But you have like, a cover story, the main story of maybe a person or something. But throughout the episode, we'll have little features that pop in and out. So you're not seeing a whole show about one thing. There's a through storyline, a through line, but there's also other little things. So we originally were comparing it to Hawaiian Moving Company. But what I also realized is it's also, and this is more, I think, universally understood, because if you didn't watch Hawaiian Moving Company, you have no idea what we're talking about. But I felt like it's like Sesame Street,
I know, I was going to say that.
right? Where,
Sesame Street comes back to the main story.
yeah,
I
like they
don't think
also,
Hawaiian Moving Company did that.
yeah, I think they just had separate
Yeah.
stories. So it's more like Sesame Street, where you have this main story throughout, but they had all these little feature,
Yeah.
segments and stuff. And that's what our show has, is, we have a story of somebody, where they have a really interesting story, uh, which has different elements and levels to it, maybe different time frames. But then we'll have little features of, and the ideas that we've come up with features, as examples, are like Memory Lane, which is where we're talking to Kupuna, who are sharing their memories of growing up in old Hawaii, or Kids These Days, which is focusing on, Keiki here right now, like a specific, um, child or teenager, and learning like what life is like for them, or what they're doing, or what they're all about. So that, I mean, we're bridging, generations and such. And then the good work, which is, what these lesser known nonprofits are seeing and doing and experiencing in our community, so that we have a better understanding of not only what they're doing, but the communities that they're a part of. So, I mean, that's kind of the basic structure of the show. But, we wanted it to be more than just a TV show, because we're going to be putting it on, a broadcast network. But we know that as we're talking right now on, on this platform, there's so many different ways, to share content now. So we're going to have a podcast version of it, where, how I mentioned, like, to gather the stories and the interviews, and then Jamie goes and, cuts it up and puts it all together. There's like sometimes up to like an hour or more of interview footage. And for this show, you're probably going to hear maybe, a fraction of that. So there's all these stories that you'll miss out. But in the podcast version, we're going to be showing or putting on the full interviews. So if there's, a guest that we had on that you were interested in and want to know more, well, great, because we had a whole lot more that we talked about that didn't show up on the show. And you like that idea, right? Because Jamie's doesn't watch TV, but she listens to podcasts, right? And you're talking about why, these longer formats of interviews and stories on podcasts are, doing like that's what the podcast audience, I guess, likes, like yourself.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. Yes.
But it just seems like since you're always in podcast, listening to podcasts and stuff, you're like picking up what you enjoy as a listener and how you can, what you would want to hear for this perspective show. So it sounds like, to me, you get really excited about this podcast version of the show.
Okay. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. No. Totally. And then we also, have YouTube versions of the show, but in short, feature style. And then for Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikTok, we'll have short segments that didn't make it onto the show, but can live on their own, like little fun bits and stuff. So there's so much content that we're getting, and we're going to be able to spread it all throughout different unique ways that are, I guess, relevant to that audience. We're not just throwing this half-hour show on all these different platforms in the same form. So, really excited about it.
I feel like if you be specific, because I'm getting bored right now listening to all this theoretical stuff. But if you're specific about, like, if we use the example of Dayton,
Mm-hmm.
what that would be. So
yeah. So
yeah.
Well, why don't you? Because I've talked a lot. So let's have you explain some of the specifics.
Well, so we interviewed Dayton Asato for our pilot episode, and his family owned KC Drive-In, and he does KC Waffle Dogs as a fundraiser now. And so we interviewed him for like an hour, I think.
Yeah.
And then also you made waffle dogs with him. And then he came back another day and you guys went through some photo albums.
Mm-hmm.
So
like old photos that he didn't even know
yeah,
he had. He just his
cousin auntie had it.
Just gave it to him.
So the interview part that's going to be on the show is like little bits from the interview for the cover story on Dayton and his family's restaurant. But then there's stuff where like the family also owned Wisteria. And then going through the photos, he was telling me this story about his uncle who was running Wisteria making a bet with the guy who owned Columbia Inn.
Yeah.
Was that it? About who would win a baseball game.
Yeah, because his uncle's a huge Cubs fan, and the other owner was a huge Reds fan, and they're facing each other in the World Series.
So the uncle won the bet, and then the other guy had to walk a wheelbarrow full of beer from Columbia Inn to Wisteria, and they have all these pictures.
They made like a huge like parade out of it and stuff.
This is like a long time ago, like black and white pictures.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not relevant because we're talking about KC Drive-In, and it'd be kind of confusing. It's hard to fit that tie-in, and it was just couldn't get it to fit into the show, but it's a really great story. So like side things like that we would have in other forms, like Instagram Reels or YouTube, like wherever it fits.
Yeah, and I even got to don the Casey Waffle Dog mascot
Yeah.
giant costume and stuff. So it's not just a straight up like, oh, it's an interview and that's it. Like there's
Yeah.
also fun elements to it, interactive and stuff, where I think that's where it's different and unique in that we're not only hearing their stories, but it's almost like we're getting to kind of, whoops, uh, I get to experience something with them as well.
I think for me, like the values of aloha thing, the way that I feel like it's relevant with the show is that when I was hearing about the values, like from the fourth grader
Yeah.
and then from Ashley, like it sounds kind of like, wow, that's a really great idea, but it's kind of intimidating. Like, I'm not a patient person. I don't feel, I don't know how to empty myself and be present. Like, so having these ideas, it's like just kind of out, like floating up high,
Mm-hmm.
something that I would like to aspire to, but I don't know that I could ever be like that. But Ashley keeps saying that it's a practice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you practice lokahi? How do you practice it? Like, practice responding with aloha.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having it, having these interviews with regular people and trying to show how these things might show up in different parts of their lives, I
Yeah.
feel like that just kind of shares how we're all trying to figure it out
Mm-hmm.
and be better people.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like, oh, how do I do that? Like, you tend to go the extreme of like difficult things,
Yeah.
like it's got to be huge. When actually it could be really, easy and nothing, of huge significance on the grand scale. Where we're not going to be like waving a flag, like, look at me, I did this. But it's kind of like a way of living day to day. And like this, and so if you're wondering, like, well, how does Dayton talking about his family restaurant teach you or show any kind of these values? What would you say to that?
I think like he's super humble,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the family, they have a lot of kindness, and the way that he talks about their employees,
Mm-hmm.
like they had, oh, I don't remember her name now, but they had a woman that was working with them for like 70 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you can just feel how like taking care of people
Yeah.
is really important to his family.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, when you are able to look at it that way, it's like, oh, see, those are things that you know make sense, that I've seen done, that I understand. um and that's something that we could do. Like, we can be kind to people and be humble, and um so yeah, that's why I think, and it's not that this show we're going to be saying like, today we're going to learn this value. It's this is more of, for us as the creators, our guiding light of like making sure that what we're doing is responsible and following this mission.
And I think we want to have these things in mind when we interview people, because
Mm-hmm.
we we got to try to have like well-known people so people will watch the show, but we don't want to ask them like the standard kind of questions. We
Yeah,
want, yeah,
we want, just like how this podcast is, like
yeah.
the usual intention is to kind of get to the depth of a person or their story versus just the shallow regular answers. So that's why, even if you see people on our television show that you've seen interviewed at other places, what our hope is that it would still be a very different and unique
Yeah.
experience because of what type of stories that we're going to be kind of pulling out of them. But it all won't happen unless we get our sponsors, because that's the only way that this can be funded. So fingers crossed. just started pitching it last week and trying to line up more meetings. We need 4 sponsors to greenlight this thing. So
Oh, we should talk about the group.
Oh yeah. So along with the other things that we're going to be doing to have this show be an experience for everyone, like that's what we want, is to make it an experience so that you feel something, right? So Jamie came up with this great idea to have a Facebook group, like to create a community. And so
we're just changing the one we already have.
So we made one last
for
year
the podcast
called Hanging Out in Hawaii, and we started out strong, and then I just forgot about it. Well, no, I didn't forget. I just lost the because it really didn't have much focus. Like I said, this is where we can have discussions about things that we love about Hawaii.
Well, we found our new favorite coffee shop.
Yes, because of that group.
Yeah.
One of the posts we did was I said, like, shout out, tell us about a local small business that people might not have heard of that we should go check out and support. And one of the members told us about Conversations coffee shop in Liliha.
Conversations Cafe?
Yeah, Conversations Cafe. That's right. And we went there, and it is now our favorite place. Like, it's so great, and it's so the people who are there are like so kind and sweet.
Yeah, they're super nice.
Yeah, so one good thing came out of it. But we're gonna rebrand it, rename it, so that it's the Here in Hawaii group, and all the different experiences that you will get from it is I'll let you share that so that you don't fall asleep.
I think that we're hoping that people will ask questions and like give us suggestions for story ideas, for show ideas, and what else?
Well, the hope is that even after the show is over, the episode is over, that we can still continue the conversation.
That's right.
So the show is just kind of to get the thoughts and the memories going. And afterwards, so we'll use Dayton as an example. Yeah. His episode airs, and we heard all about what Jamie had talked about. But then we go to the Facebook group where members will be like, "Hey, I remember," and somebody who watched the pilot gave us this feedback. Like, was I remembering correctly that back in the 50s they used to do car hop service where they would have waitresses or waiters on roller skates and deliver the food to your car? And those kind of questions like that come up from, or even people going, "Oh, my favorite memory is this," or somebody said like, "Oh, the barbecue beef," or something like that's the best. Like, did he talk about that? So instead of me going and answering people individually, we just have this group discussion, and others will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." But the cool part is we'll either have those guests come back on and answer those questions themselves, or I can get the answers from them. But it's just like we can continue to experience and answer and create connections through this Facebook group. And I think what else was there? Was there going to be like, we're planning to have like Facebook lives on there, like exclusive lives with the guests. Like, so perhaps like, Dayton comes on and joins us, and our group members can ask him directly or share thoughts with him, and
he can bring his other family members on.
Yeah. And this is also a place where people can give suggestions too, or requests of like other kinds of stories or people that they want. And so it's meant to be very interactive and just continue this experience and build a nice community of like-minded people. So if you are part of our group, be prepared. Probably by the time this comes out, the group will have been rebranded. So sorry we didn't tell you in advance. But if you haven't joined the group, I advise you to check it out and join us. It's free. We won't spam you or anything like that. We have strict rules that we will filter out anybody who's like trying to be salesy on there. Like, you join these groups and like, "Hey, anybody interested in making $1,000 for working from home? DM me." Like, you won't catch those on this group. But yeah, just look up Here in Hawaii.
Hopefully. We don't know yet because we didn't rebrand it yet. It'll either be that or hanging out in Hawaii.
Which is what it's already called. Look for us. Find us. Actually, we have a website for the show, and we can probably put the information there, right?
I
A
don't
link
know
to the
how to
group.
change that website yet.
Well, you can at least bookmark it so that when we do figure it out, you'll already have it.
Instagram.
So hereinhawaiitv.com is the website, or on Instagram, Here in Hawaii TV, which that's probably our most active source of updates, which
That's the
isn't very
safest
much.
one for now because I haven't figured out how to do the website yet.
Yeah. So join us, I guess, and come along for the ride. And if you happen to be an interested prospective guest or sponsor, let us know. We could use all the help. But yeah, any other thoughts? Well, that in a nutshell is what's been going on, what we wanted to share with you. We're very excited about it, and hoping that we can get this out to you very soon. The plan is to start airing in the first quarter of this coming year. So maybe late January, February, which means we got a lot of production to do, a lot of filming to do. And in order to do that, we need sponsors. So sponsors, we'll see you
Send us
soon.
good juju.
And we'll keep you posted. But next week, we have a really awesome episode. This is my one batched episode, so I know what it is. And it's with my friend Henry, who is Hawaii's butterfly daddy. And if you're already like, what the heck is a butterfly daddy? You're going to have to tune in to find out. So tune in next week for another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan HOWNH.